I know I'm tall, dark, handsome, and I'm into golf, but I can assure you, I am not Tiger Woods. And here's another news flash for you. African American golf did not begin with Tiger Woods. History has forever been less than kind to the African American golfer. In fact, the game itself has thrown a little bit of everything at us, from shanks to chunks to skulls, even stymies. My admiration for those who came before me and paved the way was really influenced when I decided to write a book titled Uneven Lies, the heroic story of African Americans in golf. I really began to appreciate how many hurdles they had to clear just in order to play the game themselves. True pioneers they were, because they refused to let anyone block their path to the first tee. Now, history will tell you that they had a lot of hurdles. One of the main ones was, in the first place, Jim Crow tried to tell us that we could have separate but certainly not equal facilities to theirs. Then the PGA of America chimed in with something called the Caucasian Only Clause, which pretty much said that we couldn't be members in their organization, nor could we play in their events. You get the feeling that maybe we weren't wanted? Well, African Americans back in the day certainly did. Now, they could have quit. They could have given up. But what did they do? Instead, they hitched their pants and their skirts, took a deep breath, and swung away at segregation and any other force that sought to block their path to the first tee or keep them or their game in bondage. You might say they were going against the grain. In essence, they were true revolutionaries, trying to find their place in the game. So I'm going to tell you a few stories about these people who were pioneers who inspired me to go against the grain. Quiet, please. There's a revolution in progress. Again, I remind you that African American golf did not begin with Tiger Woods. In fact, it began with the revolutionary idea that a 16-year-old caddy belonged among the best players of his time. That man was John Matthew Shippen. In 1896, the U.S. Open Championship was being contested at Shinnecock Hills Golf Club on Long Island. In the field were two minorities, John Shippen Jr. and his buddy, Oscar Bunn, who was a Native American. Now, when the rest of the field found out that he was playing and Oscar Bunn was playing, they threatened to boycott. They didn't want to play with these two minorities. Well, Theodore Havermeyer, who was the head of the USGA at the time, quelled that impending rebellion in a New York Minute by telling them in no uncertain terms, the tournament's going on, whether these two kids are the only ones in it or not. The rebellion was put down. Now, John Shippen acquitted himself very well. He actually tied for the lead in the first round and eventually finished in a tie for fifth. In so doing, he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that African Americans belonged in the game. In 1995, the USGA celebrated its centennial for the U.S. Open Championship, and it returned to Shinnecock Hills. Another young man of color was in the field, one Tiger Woods. Next up on the tee, we have Joseph Bartholomew. Now, Joseph Bartholomew was the first African-American golf course architect. He lived in and around New Orleans. He studied under Seth Rayner, who was a great American architect. Well, when he returned home to New Orleans, he was commissioned to do a new golf course for Metairie Country Club, which he did. He finished it, and by all accounts, he did a great job. But after he finished, the black man who constructed this golf course, who had the vision to design it, couldn't take a white ball, put it in his black hand, place it on the green grass that he had sown himself, and hit it with a golf club. He couldn't even play his own creation. That's how difficult it was during the Jim Crow era. Next up on the tee is John Brooks Dendy. Now, John Brooks Dendy is a favorite of mine because he hails from my home area, which is Western North Carolina. The story goes that when he was a kid, he came upon these metal club heads. And using something that we lovingly refer to in the African American community as Ethiopian Ingenuity, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that means making the best use of whatever you have at hand. He found these wooden broom handles, and with his case knife that he always kept in his front pocket, just in case there was any trouble around, he shaved those wooden broom handles into the thickness of golf club shafts, attached them to the metal club heads, and that became his first set of golf clubs. He would go on to win 3 Negro National Open Championships. Not with those clubs, I don't think, but that's not what he was famous for. During an exhibition in Jacksonville, Florida, John Brooks Dendy played the first hole, which was a par 4. He made a 1 on it, a hole in 1. The second hole was a par 3. He made a birdie on it, a 2. Third hole was a par 4. He birdied it. He made 3. Fourth hole was a par 5. He birdied it. He made 4. So in making 1, 2, 3, 4 to start his round off, and he completed an amazing 59, he wound up in Ripley's Believe It or Not, the first African-American golfer to be so honored. He went home to his beloved home in Western North Carolina and worked at a couple of country clubs. He might just be the father of black golf in Western North Carolina. Next up on the tee, I'll give you Bill Spiller. Now, Bill Spiller is referred to in black golf history as a tragic hero. And sometimes in golf, when you're going against the grain, when you're putting against the grain, you sometimes come up short because it's going toward you. And sometimes the grain makes the ball take funny breaks, break left, right, before it gets into the hole. And sometimes the grain breaks the golfer. It broke Bill Spiller. Bill Spiller was a good enough golfer that in the 1948 LA Open, he shot a 68 to tie the great Ben Hogan for second place in the first round. He was also a good enough golfer to win a lot of money around the Los Angeles area hustling people. But he was not a good enough golfer to push through legislation to end the Caucasian-only clause, and that frustrated him. He was militant by nature, and he would boycott. He even sued the PGA of America, but to no avail. By By the time the Caucasian-only clause was rescinded and removed from the PGA of America's Constitution, Bill Spiller was too old to play on tour. Story goes that he died in a nursing home, a bitter man, clutching the tattered newspaper articles detailing his successes on the golf course and his failures as an activist off the golf course. Next up, we have Joe Louis, the heavyweight champion of the world. Now, Joe Louis was a golfer as well, and a pretty good one. But he's not known in black golf history for his playing ability. He's known for his philanthropy. He employed black golfers, pros of the day. He gave them a place where they could play. He had a tournament in his honor. And in 1952, because of his celebrity, he gained entry into the 1952 San Diego Open, becoming the first African American to play in a PGA-sanctioned event. But the details of how he got that honor are a little sketchy, but we do know this. The great radio personality Walter Winchell went on a series of reports about the racial bias practiced by the PGA of America. He shamed the tournament committee into allowing Joe Louis to play. Joe Louis was not only a champion in the ring, but on the golf course as well. Next up, we have the Greensboro Six. These were 6 avid golfers in Greensboro, North Carolina, who decided one day they were going to face down Jim Crow. So they go to Gillespie Park Golf Course, a course that was a public course, paid for by their taxes. And of course, they weren't allowed to play. But they plopped down their 75 cents. Each one of them went out to the golf course, and by the 5th hole, they were arrested and thrown in jail. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court to no avail. And although they didn't win the case, they opened doors for people to play public facilities in the state of North Carolina, the Greensboro Six. Next up on the tee is Althea Gibson. Now, Althea Gibson was truly an amazing athlete, and what would a revolution be without a revolutionary athlete? Althea Gibson won the 1957 and 58 Wimbledon and US Open championships back-to-back. Then she retired from tennis. Then she started touring with the Harlem Globetrotters. That's how good of an athlete she was. Then she got tired of that and decided she wanted to play golf, which she did. In 1963, she became the first African-American member of the LPGA Tour. So all of the players who came after her, all the young ladies who had dreams to play, owe her a debt of gratitude. And next, up on the tee, we have Dr. Charles Sifford, the Jackie Robinson of golf. And why is he called the Jackie Robinson of golf? Because he broke the color barrier in golf in 1960 when he received his approved player's card. Now, he was 37 years old at the time. Because of the Caucasian-only clause, it took him that long to become a member of the PGA Tour. He made the best use of his time, however. He won twice on the PGA Tour. And he finished in the top 60 money winners 10 consecutive years. Truly an amazing player. His accolades, though, came after golf. In 2004, he was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame, the only black member of the World Golf Hall of Fame. 3 years later, St. Andrews University in Scotland awarded him an honorary doctorate, thus Dr. Charles Sifford. Next up on the T is William Powell. When William Powell returned from the service, he found very few opportunities in the golf arena. So he talked a couple of his physician friends into purchasing some property in Ohio. He designed, built with his own hands this golf course called Clearview. And in so doing, he became the first African American to build, to design, to own and operate a golf course in this country. Next up on the T, we have Charlie Owens. Now, Charlie Owens is kind of near and dear to my heart as well, because he was an impeccable dresser, as you see I am as well. But he had a stiff leg due to an accident when he was in the war. But he is the inventor of the long putter, of which I use. I'm one of many who use it. Using, again, Ethiopian Ingenuity, he took two long shafts, put them together, and that cured his yips. And those of you who don't know what yips are, you don't want to know what yips are. They're involuntary flinches, muscular flinches, and when you're on the putting green, it's not a good thing to have. It has ruined the careers of many golfers, including Ben Hogan and Johnny Miller. Next up on the T, I give you William Bill Dickey. William Bill Dickey started a scholarship fund in 1986. He sent dozens of African Americans to school on college golf scholarships. He's responsible for most of the young African Americans who are in the business today. He was a champion, a humanitarian, someone who really thought about a revolutionary act which was opening doors for those to come after him. So the challenge today is for you all to be revolutionaries. Open your mind, see a need, go against the grain. Don't be afraid. These young people who are the next generation, and hopefully they'll be following in the footsteps of their predecessors, these people that I've talked about today, hopefully they will have the heart of champions, the heart of a revolutionary. So I can one day say to you, quiet on the T, please. The revolution is still in progress. Thank you.